Hey guys, today we're going to do something a little different. I have an interview that I did with Doglightning about 2 weeks ago that I wanted to release, but just finally got the opportunity to since this week is Halloween and I am hungover as hell. There's not going to be much happening on screen within the video. Think of this more kind of like a podcast interview that you can listen to either in your pocket or while you're just going about your day. And there is a little bit of echo as well at the beginning of the video. I'll put a timestamp in once the video actually starts on where you can skip that. It's pretty soon in, only maybe 30 or 40 seconds. So I hope you guys enjoy this. Let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace. The first question is really easy, and you saw the Zoe video, so you know I like to talk about like where a player has come from, what they've done in the past, how they started League. So really the question is just like, tell me your League of Legends story. How did you get into it? How did you eventually find out the support role or Zoe, et cetera, et cetera? I mean Neeko, sorry, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. So I guess to start off, I've always been a support main. I used to play a lot of World of Warcraft arenas as a healer with my friends in high school, and then we wanted to play a new game, so we started to play League of Legends. So in the first season, I was silver. The next season after that, I was gold, and the season after that, I was platinum. And I sat platinum for about 4 to 5 years as I was in university, and I didn't really care about climbing. I just played for fun between classes and played with my friend who was about silver level. So I
Yep.
sat platinum for a while. Then I graduated from university, and I was playing. Neeko just came out, and I was trying her out, and she seemed pretty fun. I used to main Zyra. I never used to be an OTP. I only became an OTP to stream because it's good to grow as a streamer. So I
Yep.
used to main Zyra and play a heavy amount of Zyra, and Neeko is basically like an updated version of Zyra with a similar kit: Q poke, W vision control, E root, AoE ulti.
Uh-huh.
So I picked up Neeko and I was playing her, and I played her as a mid laner because that's what she was intended. I was like, wait, this champ's really similar to Zyra. Zyra came out as a mid laner and has the exact same kit, so Neeko probably can do the same thing. So I started playing her as support. At the same time, I was teaching some new friends who just came to the league for the first time. So I was playing a lot in like bronze and stuff. So that's like where I got a lot of my practice of learning Neeko was versus like bronze players, learning all the matchups. And then I decided I wanted to climb and see if I could hit diamond for the first time ever because I wasn't in school anymore and didn't have. I just wanted to see what I could do. So pretty quickly, I always sat around like plat 2, plat 1, and I pretty quickly, easily climbed to diamond when I actually tried. And then I decided to start streaming because I thought maybe people want to watch that. So I streamed pretty much all my games. I've never really played off stream. I climbed my first season in season 9 that I hit diamond. I finished the season at the bottom of master, all on stream. And then the next season, I was grandmasters all 3 splits, peaking 5 wins from challenger that season. And then
Uh-huh.
this season, I've been grandmaster the first 2 splits and just hit challenger for the final split. So I went from season 9 being platinum to masters, season 10 grandmaster, and season 11 challenger. And this was all playing only Neeko, unless Neeko is target banned, which no one really does. So it's basically 99% all Neeko and all on stream. Um, so yeah, I guess that's the story
Wow.
of
I
Neeko.
was gonna say, yeah, it's pretty crazy how fast you climbed, considering you were kind of just playing for fun for a while, and then it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, that last season or season 9, excuse me, was really the first season that you really started taking it super seriously, and even in that season, you were able to climb to master. It was right.
Yeah, well, like I always was basically always, everyone says they're a diamond player, level player when they're platinum and like kind
Same.
of
That's me.
delusional
I do
play.
that.
Yeah, everyone does it. I would say I was probably one of the people who was probably right. I mostly, because like I said, I just played for fun, and I usually played in duo with my friend. He was like a silver player, and I was like probably like a diamond player. So we averaged out him in gold and me in plat, and I played most of my games with him. So I was
Hmm.
probably good enough to hit diamond a long time ago if I actually wanted to. But yeah, I mean, I never was actually diamond, so I did go from that spike from diamond to masters. And yeah, I mean, it took a lot of games, thousands of games played because I was streaming back then that 6 days a week for 8 hour streams, and I never missed a stream, and I would just grind it out. So yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of time.
That's awesome. That's a lot of dedication too. Did you? So were you more? Was your goal more to become better and bigger at streaming, or was it really just to kind of grind and try to get up to as high as you can with Neeko support?
I mean, I've always been a competitive person, so I've always been wanting to get as high rated as possible, but my goal has always been to just become a full-time streamer and grow as a streamer. But that still goes hand in hand with getting as high of a rank as possible, because the higher rank you are, the more opportunities. Like this interview wouldn't happen if I was still a diamond player, right? So
Hmm.
getting
Very
high
true.
elo kind of went hand in hand with what my ultimate goal of being a full-time professional streamer was. So
Heck yeah. And it seems like that's going pretty well. I tune into some of your streams and you have over 100 consistent viewers pretty much all the time, sometimes even more for peak as well. And do you think that you still have a lot of room to grow? Do you feel like you're already at the point like I've done it, but now obviously I still just want to get better? Or how do you feel about your streaming career?
yeah. So I definitely know that there's a plateau you can get to by one tricking one champion and that's it. In the late time goal would be to eventually one day become a variety streamer where people are just there to watch me and I play whatever I want, but that'd probably be maybe another 4 or 5 years from now.
Hmm.
In the short time goal was term, it was I need to eventually not be a Neeko one trick. So at the end of season 9ish, when I first hit masters of that goal, I started doing a thing called Medalist Mondays, where I basically wanted to like play other champs. So the first champ I picked up was actually the Zoe support in season 9
Nice.
as my off meta. Last season I went unranked to Diamond 2 playing only Zoe support.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I've just been over time adding more champions. I play Zoe support, Talia support, Nivea support, Ivern support, and now Vex support. Those are like my main ones that I'll play in Grandmaster Elo if I get target banned. But also on the Mondays I'll play other stuff like LeBlanc and Lissandra, Jarvan and stuff. So yeah, I've eventually want to just I took a course in entrepreneurship and the big
Hmm.
thing they said is you should always target a niche market. So my first niche was Neeko support, high elo, and just support in general for streaming isn't as big was my niches. And yeah, so then I knew that if I wanted to grow, I wanted to still target this niche of off meta support since people like to watch me for either Neeko or just the fact that I was off meta. So I wanted to grow off meta. And now that I've hit my goal of challenger, playing only Neeko, I'm still gonna main Neeko, but I want to now get another my off meta account. I want to next season get that to Grandmaster without playing Neeko on it. So literally a week ago, my Medalist Monday account, I left it perma D4 where I would just try stuff out. And I decided I wanted to actually start to climb on it because when I get target banned on Neeko, my other stuff, even though it's playable, it's nowhere close to as good. So
Right.
a week ago, I stopped playing like those five that I listed. Those five I listed in Nivea, Vex, Ivern, Zoe, and whatever the other one was. The five that I play, I've only been playing those five on that account now for the past week, and I went from D4 to D1 now in just 2 streams. So I'm trying to get that into Masters before the end of the season. But next season, I want to get that account into Grandmasters just to prove that I can play other off meta stuff other than Neeko at a high level. And yeah, just grow my stream so that eventually one day I can keep broadening my audience until I can become a variety streamer in general.
Yeah, that's awesome. And through all those additional off metas that you play, it sounds like Zoe's your favorite out of all of them. Is there another one that would be like your second favorite for the off metas?
Yeah, Zoe's got it got a place in my heart because it was the next one I learned after Neeko, and she's is insanely fun. But at the
So
same
fun.
time, I know out of all the other stuff I play, she's probably one of the like least viable off metas. So I try not to play her too much just because I know it's like she doesn't have a great lane phase and doesn't have the greatest scaling. It's just like awkward. So of
Hmm.
like the ones that I try to like focus on the most is my Anivia and Zac. I think both of those are super high potential to be like Neeko, where they're not just like a cheese. Like Zoe, I only will pick it for the most part into lanes where I have like AFK farm ADC like Ezreal or something that can farm safe into like a non-kill lane. Like I like to really play her into like Lulu support. I find it's an easy lane to scale out of for the
Yep.
most part. But like Anivia and like Zac are like good enough that you can play those into like you can almost blind pick those into almost anything like Neeko. So Anivia and Zac are like the two that I'm focusing on the most. But my Talia support's getting pretty good too, and she's pretty good into a lot of matchups also. But definitely Anivia and Zac have like the most potential, I think.
Totally
How you
agree.
feel
I
about
think I think
Talia?
Zoe is, like you said, like a little bit more, I guess, cheese for lack of a
Yeah,
better word, but definitely so much fun. And I 100% agree with Zach at least because I feel like Zach is completely untapped in the support role and should really be
yeah,
used more by people.
yeah. He's pretty good. The I enjoyed your Zoe video, but I built her pretty different than that one. The way I built her is I go 3 points Q and then start maxing my bubble. And I get like as much CDR as possible. So I get CDR boots and I try to get like even like Night Harvester, which has the CDR Mythic and Cosmic
Hmm.
Drive. And I get my bubble down to like almost a 5 second cooldown. And I can just every 5 to 10 seconds just be tossing bubbles with the idea that all I need is one bubble to connect on an enemy and you basically just win the game off of that. So
Yeah.
that's like how I play her. where the
That's
guy
genius.
from your video plays her more of just like a standard mid champion of just trying to do as much damage as possible.
So true, yeah.
So
And honestly, playing some Zoe support, it feels like your bubble is your most powerful move overall.
yeah, I
So
mean,
having
all
that
you need is
available.
one bubble to connect on a squishy target, and your team will just jump on it, and they're instantly dead. So I try to just get the bubble as low as possible of a cooldown, and just so I can just spam it every 5 to 6 seconds, and just if it connects on someone, it connects. I feel like in the support role in general, you don't need to do as much. I mean, it depends on the elo because the elo I'm playing at is different than lower elos, which is why I'll for this video for my Neeko, I'll like talk about all the builds because the build I've been running to hit Challenger is like really good for my elo because it's a cheap, cost efficient build and it like relies on my teammates doing all the damage. But there's
Hmm.
like builds that I would run in like Diamond and below instead of the build for just like climbing.
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll talk about all those builds a little bit later. And a good segue back into Neeko. I was actually going to ask you, why do you love Neeko support? Why did she really capture your heart over anybody else?
Well, obviously I've like off meta. I've always liked off meta. I remember back in the day playing like LeBlanc support and Gragas support before Gragas was considered a support. I've always liked the idea, so I like that. But I also just like how fun and diverse she is. So there's lots of supports. For instance, tank supports. If you can't go in to fight the enemy, you're just AFK doing nothing. Enchanter supports, you're just protecting your ADC. There's lots of times where most supports aren't doing anything. The thing I like about mage supports in general, including
Hmm.
Neeko, is even if you're in a losing lane, you're still doing something. So you're always trying to land poke on the enemy or pressure or do something. So I like that aspect of that. You're just always doing something proactive on the champion. But I also like the fact that she is a jack of all trades champ, which she's kind of designed to be that way in terms of the fact that she's a chameleon. You can turn into allies. You can build her in solo lanes. She has like the on hit on her W, so they were designing her to be able to be played as like an AP or auto attack speeds champion. So she's
Hmm.
kind of this jack of all trades. Obviously, I also play her in a tanky form, so I just like the fact that you can go tank, you can go burst, you can go sustain damage, you can go utility. In previous seasons, last season there was a build I would go versus like team comps where I knew I couldn't do anything. I would go Shirelia's into Redemption back when Shirelia's gave heal power and Redemption scaled off heal power, and I would just have Shirelia's to help me like engage and stuff, and Redemption would do like the craziest heal because of the stacking of heal power. So I like Neeko that you can play her as an assassin, you can play her as a backliner, you can play her as a frontliner, you can play her however you really like. There's not really like a wrong way to play the champion.
Awesome. And you discovered her, I assume, like when she came out, when she was first released. And so after that, you just kind of took off with her, I assume.
Yeah, it was more. I was taking a break from League at the time. I was playing Overwatch, and I came back because my roommates wanted to like learn to play. So that's when I still, like I said, I started playing with friends at like a lower elo when I was learning her. And yeah, I
Hmm.
just came back with them, and my friend was playing mid, and I was playing jungle, and they had a Neeko mid, and I just remember every time I tried to gank, she kept stealthing and running away, and I was just like, damn, this is like so annoying. This champ's so OP. I need to try her. So then I went and played her mid the next game, and was like, wow, this champ's kit is like the exact same as Zyra, and Zyra is like what I used to main, and she was released as a mid laner and played as support, so I can probably do the same thing. So that's really how I started playing
Heck
Neeko.
yeah. Awesome. I think my first champion was unimpressively Brand that I really latched onto, and I feel like poor Brand has been forgotten about since season
He
like
has,
3.
but he's also, I feel, still like a classic champ that a lot of new players play because you new players aren't very good. They like to just push R and watch everyone burn.
Yes, still so fun, still so fun. All right, now we're gonna get into more like, kind of just like basic game questions, and these next three will be very similar. So you can be as broad or as short as you need to be on them. But the basic question is, how do you play early game as Neeko? I noticed when I watched some of your replays and watched some of your streams and YouTube videos that level one, you're pretty like auto attack heavy. Obviously, you're kind of using your clone to both check bush and then also kind of stealth from when you're going to use your E. But just tell me kind of more about your early game as Neeko.
Right. So as Neeko, I start W into every single matchup, no matter what, because you're either in a lane like versus a melee or some sort of range where you can auto attack trade,
Hmm.
and you can just auto them and push W so they can't auto you back and just keep trading efficiently. Or you're in a lane where you can't trade with the enemy, but you can use it to push for level 2 by auto attacking the wave. So either way, it's useful for pushing power or for just harassing power. It also has no cooldown, so if you take Q level 1 and you throw your Q, now there's like an 8-second window where the enemy can trade into you and harass you and zone you from the wave. But with your
Mhm.
empowered auto, if you trade with the enemy, you auto the wave twice and you have your W back up, so there's not this big downtime where the enemy can harass you. That being said, taking Q level 1 is fine. If you watch any pro players who've played it in pro play, because it's been played by SKT multiple times and it's been played in NA, pro players always take Q level 1 with Comet, so if you're not good enough to do the auto attack playstyle and harass, it's perfectly fine to take Q level 1. But I take W, and the main cheese strat with the W2 that works a lot in lower elos. It doesn't really happen as much anymore in higher elos sometimes, but in lower elo, the cheese strat is when you hit level 2, you can stealth at the enemy and point your root and look for an all in if you have an all in ADC. But the
Mhm.
tree strat, how it works is on the second wave, when you kill the third melee minion, you're going to hit level 2. So what I like to do is as we're about to be killing the third melee minion, I take like a couple steps backwards to make their team have a false sense of security to walk forwards.
Mhm.
And then as right before I hit the level up, I can stealth and start running at the enemy before I hit 2. So as my ADC autos the minion, I'm hitting level 2 at the same time as being in the front of the enemy's face with no time for them to react. Um, if you want to see a recording of that, by the way, for later, there's a game where I was playing versus Amelia. I'm not sure if it was on my TTV Doglightning or TWTV Doglightning, but I have a clip of me getting a level 2 all-in spike like that against Amelia. She was playing Soraka.
Beautiful. And yeah, that quick level up always catches people off guard, especially at lower elo. I also noticed that in some of your videos too, that some players that are less aware will think that you've gotten like your Q or your E first, and when you're auto attacking them, they're trying to like dance around dodging that skill shot, but instead you're just kind of auto attacking them the whole
Yeah.
time.
Another trick is your passive, when you pretend to be an ally, hides the fact that you have empowered auto ready. So I usually, when I'm leashing, I only give 5 autos, so 1, 2, empowered auto, 1, 2, and then I get my empowered auto ready. For 2
Mhm.
reasons. If I come into lane and they're cheesing us in a tri-bush or something, I want my empowered auto ready. And 2, I can come into lane and I can like use my camouflage to look like the ADC or something, so the enemy team doesn't see that I have my passive auto ready. So they're
Mhm.
not expecting me to just like do like a thick auto trade. So but yeah, anyways, I'll go back into the early game strategy. So yeah, I use my W to cheese where I pre-stealth before I hit 2, so that as I'm hitting 2, I'm in their face and they can't run away. And then I'll instantly point my E and go for an all-in. I've been recently running Predator, but this strategy also works really well with Electrocute. Before Predator buffs, I only ever ran Electrocute, and the idea is Ignite also procs Electrocute. So if you take Electrocute for like, if you have like a really strong level 2, like Tristana, Caitlyn, or something, you can stealth. And then you E auto Ignite, which procs Electrocute and has the anti heal Grievous Wounds for their heal. And you can just burst someone level 2 like that.
Mhm.
Another reason why level 1 W and level 2 E is good is because if you get ganked early, you want as many tools to help you survive, and Q does nothing to help you survive. So W, you have your stealth, or you can block a skill shot, or you can use it to run away, and your root is a root. Your Q does nothing. So in terms of just like surviving a gank or something, W and E is the most consistent. And also, if you want to roam early, like you early back and you roam mid level 2, or your jungle's fighting for scuttle and you're still level 2, it's better to have again your 2 abilities that give you the most utility and like ways to play the fight. Where if you took like WQ, you don't have a root. If you took like QE, you don't have a way to get in range to hit your root without having to like waste your flash.
Mhm.
So Q and W or E and W are your most impactful spells. So I like to make sure I have those. Even if I do an invade or something, I'll start E. But if I get into lane when I hit level 2, I still take my W because I just want a way to help me hit a root. Um, Another main combo for Neeko also is you usually play in the bush a lot. And when the enemy walks up to CS, you stealth from the bush to the wave and throw your empowered root through the wave and just look for either poke or all in. The
Mhm.
good thing about Neeko is you can play for either poke or all in, and it doesn't really matter. So like I can throw like an EQ and then just walk away, or I can throw an EQ, and if my ADC's in position and wants to go in, I can just start auto attacking and get as many empowered autos off as possible. So you can kind of play them both ways. It's kind of annoying. I remember in a lot of lower elo games when I was still a diamond player, I'd like go in for like the EQ and my ADC would like all in and then like rage at me like, why would you all in? But it's like, it's just like my poke spell. But
Yeah,
like
you're
I
like,
can
I'm
also
not
all
all
in on
inning.
it.
You
So
just have seen it that way.
yeah, like they're just like going all in and just, trying to blame someone else for them misplaying. But Yeah, is there anything else I should be talking about in the early game that you want to know? That's like
No,
just
I
like my
mean,
level
you
1
made
to
a
3
good
really.
point of sometimes, like you said, maybe if I'm like level 2 and I look for like an earlier roam, I want to ask you the question, do you do a lot of roams throughout your games? And also, are you only looking to roam now if you have your Predator boots early game, or are you just kind of going with the flow of the game?
Yeah, I mean, the meta really is currently that supports in high elo don't even lane. It's kind of annoying because personally, Neeko is a lane bully. She wants to play to dominate lane and snowball her ADC, but if you play like that and the enemy supports roaming, you just lose the game. So the meta in high elo is to roam. So yeah, I'm always looking to roam as much as possible. I mean, in the early game, you just will need to see where your jungle's pathing. So if your jungle's started bot side and it's pathing top, then usually you're just playing for lane at that time. But if your jungler started top side and is pathing bot, you want to try and get priority for your lane so that when your jungler gets there, you can shove in and rotate and help for the scuttle crab or help him if he's going to go invade. Even sometimes your jungle starts bot side and will go vertical jungling and invade the enemy jungle. So yeah, it just depends where your jungler is. If your jungler's on your side of the map, try to always have your wave shoved if you can, get priority and rotate over to your jungler. And in terms of like actual roaming for like kills and stuff, usually after every single back, you usually have somewhere you could be going that's not your lane. So after you back, unless your ADC is about to get tower dove, which is not very usual because usually when you reset, both lanes reset at the same time, and you
Yep.
usually have about a minute window to roam. So after you reset, you're usually the rule of thumb I always say is if you don't know what to do, just auto path mid because you can go mid, get deny vision from the enemy with the sweepers, place vision for your mid laners, they don't die, and then walk back mid bot, or you can gank your mid. But yeah, for the most part, it's just after you back, just rotate either mid or top, but usually just mid.
I love that quick tip because I feel like so many low elo players, like you've already analyzed, right, are going back and then just immediately walking the lane regardless of the
Yeah.
wave state, etc. Right? I think it's
Everyone
a
always
great
just
tip.
autopilot bot, but I would say like 9 times out of 10, I'm not going back to my lane after I reset because usually the ADC doesn't need me. And like if the enemy bot lane's playing something like, like an Ezreal Yumi, like you don't even have to ever go bot. Like your ADC can just 1v2 farm that lane. But if they're playing like a tank support, you have to be more careful. But usually it's like if they're tank support and you reset, and if you go bot and their tank support goes and ganks mid, and they kill mid, your mid's gonna be tilted and just like start inting and just like flaming you all game. And it's like better for you just to go mid because if their support ganks mid, you're there to counter gank. If their
Yep.
support doesn't go mid, you can gank or you can just get vision down for your mid and go bot. But there's no point of going straight bot. You have a good 30 to 40-second window after you back to just go make a play or just go get vision or do something. And if in doubt, I usually say just roam towards your jungler because if you roam away from your jungler, there's a chance that you run into the enemy jungle or support and you could die. But if you roam towards your jungler, at worst case scenario, if their jungle and support together, it's 2v2. If it's just their jungler, it's 2v1. So usually I just roam to the side of the map that my jungler's on because it's the safest.
Genius. Awesome. No, that's going to be super helpful for a lot of people, I think, just to hear that quick tip of, roam as soon as you go back, look for that 40-second window. That's beautiful.
Talk about level 6 spike too. So like
Yeah, talk to me about it.
at level 6, you're looking to find all-ins with your ulti. This is like your strongest. You spike level 2, 3, and like 6 are your biggest spikes. Level 2 where you have your WE cheese combo. Level 3 where you get your Q, which does a crazy amount of base damage. And level 6 when you get your ulti. This is where Predator really shines. So again, I used to always run Electrocute before Predator buffs, and Electrocute is still fine, but Electrocute you're really playing for like the early like level 2 to level 3 cheese play.
Hmm.
Predator, you are accepting the fact that you might not get some early kills that you would have with Electrocute, but you're playing Predator because you know at level 6 you can just run the enemy down. So especially if the enemy's playing in a mobile bot laner, all
Hmm.
you have to really do is you just again, I like to sometimes play extra far back to give them a false sense of security where they walk up and I prop Predator and stealth at them from a bush with Predator. And you literally don't even have to throw your root. You just run at them with ulti. And if you are dead center on them in the middle with your ulti, even if they flash, they can't flash out of the ulti. So you just start running people down at level 6 with your ulti for the most part. And a good strategy too is if you're not as good at getting kills in lane, exhaust is actually really good because it can help you get through that early game and survive. And if you run at them with Predator and exhaust and just exhaust them and run at them with Predator, there's literally no way for their ADC to get out of it. And you can just start killing people over and over and over again. Like it works in all elos. I've had games in Grandmaster where I literally 4 or 5 times in a row just kill the ADC over and over again. Every time Predator's up, I just run at them and alt. So that's why I really like Predator because the Predator is really synergizing with once you're level 6 and after on Neeko,
Hmm.
you just run at people. pretty fun.
Yeah, and the extra movement speed from your W too, I assume, plays into that as
Yeah.
well. You should really run down anybody that you want
Yeah,
throughout the
you get
early
the
game.
20%, you get 20% from your W, 60% from Predator. And you also, because of this, the way that stealth works is that you're like stealthing, and with Predator ups, you're getting like a really big distance before they'll even see you. You can like be an extra, instead of like being at the bush closest to them in lane. Like I said, sometimes I'll go to a bush backwards so that they like walk up and I can just like stealth from like really far away and end up like in their face super quick. And yeah, if they end up flashing it and getting out, it's like, okay, now that they have no flash, 100% next ulti. It's either like they flash it and they don't get out, or they flash it and they get out. But then I just know that next time my ulti's up and Predator's up, which is literally a minute cooldown, 1 minute later, they have no flashes up and you can just kill them. And if you ping no flash in your jungler, you can even tower dive. Like there's not much they can do under tower if you just run at them with Predator and your jungler's there. Um, yeah, usually if I'm going for tower dives, you want to just rush Zhonya's first because you can just run in, tank tower, and pop Zhonya's. They can't really do much about it.
Okay, so we've got through a lot of early game. We've gotten through our early game power spikes as well. Talk to me about mid and late game and really what your objectives are there as Neeko.
So in the mid to late game, as a normal support, you're just wanting to get vision control around objectives. Neeko is really good at vision control because of her W being able to face check any bush. She's probably the best vision control champ in the whole entire game. Even a
Mhm.
lot of tank supports who can get vision by themselves usually need to have teammates near them so that if they get jumped on, they have someone backup. As Neeko, you can get vision control by yourself with no one near you, as long as you're always using your W to face check anywhere that you don't know where the enemy could be. And every time you use your W, it's about, by that point in the game with CDR, about a 15 to 13-second cooldown. So if I
Mhm.
check one bush with my W, I just chill for 13 seconds, wait for it to come back up, and then use it again, and I can get deep vision, really deep vision. Sometimes, for instance, people will ward wraiths. I can pop my W and ward the actual bush by wraiths. So vision
Mhm.
control is a huge part of the mid game for Neeko, where you're just getting as deep vision around as possible, so your team can always be playing aggressive. And then other than that, you're just roaming around for the most part and just trying to shadow anyone on your team who could possibly be getting ganked or pushed on. So that's what you're doing in the mid game in terms of moving. And then there's also objective fights. So again, you're getting vision around the objectives and you're trying to just body the enemy out so that they can't get in. Um, by block just like standing in between them. If they try to get in and steal, you can like root them and ulti them and stuff.
Mhm.
If the enemy team is the one in the winning position in the mid game, so that's like if you're in a winning position, you're able to get deep vision and secure barons and dragons, and usually you're trying to zone the enemy. If you're in a losing position, usually you're trying to get a bit more shallow vision, but again, your W helps you because you can get a bit deeper vision than usually you'd be able to get in a losing position. And again, you're still just trying to shadow people, make sure people don't get tower dove. When the enemy team is trying to take a dragon or something and they have positioning, again, the W is super useful because usually y'all know it when you're moving in as a 5-man unit and they're all camping a bush and they all jump at you as you try to go to dragon. So you can use your
Mhm.
W to safely pilot your way towards the dragon. And at this point is where it can get really strong because again, you have Predator and you're looking to usually just engage for your team. So you pop Predator and you run at the enemy and you just flash and hit as many people as you can. And usually if you do that, you're just gonna win team fights. So Neeko is a huge team fight champion. You're just trying to hit big fat ultis. You can play her as either to engage or to peel. There's two different ways you can build her. I guess we can talk about now or later when you want to talk about build.
Yeah, we'll get
Because we
there a
can
little
talk
bit
about
later. You actually
okay.
brought up a good point. I was going to ask you, where do you think is like Nico's biggest power points? Obviously you mentioned team fighting and a little bit of peeling as well, but where do you think she excels at more than other champions?
Yeah, she excels the most. It again, this is why I was saying maybe a bit about the build, but it depends on the build. So if you're going like the AP build that we'll talk about later, she excels at engaging and bursting.
Mhm.
And the new build that I've been running now with the locket is more of like a peel build where you're not necessarily engaging. You're usually like follow up engaging for your team, but you're usually just like sitting back more and peeling. So it depends really on like the play style again that you're gonna play her. And all are viable. Like I got to almost challenger with the electrocute. I was 5 wins away from challenger before I swapped to predator with this new build. So both are like equally viable to play. Um, so
We
yeah,
can
when you're
talk
going
about
the
the builds now if that helps, because I think I'm going to have a lot of questions about like play style going forward. So let's talk about those two different builds. Obviously, I think that the two big ones that you mentioned were electrocute that you got to obviously or master in, right, and then now what you're
yeah.
doing in like Grandmaster Plus, which is the tankier
Yeah,
Predator
so
build.
you can run Predator with either Rune setup, but the Electrocute is good for snowballing. So usually you would combo out with the AP build. So the AP build is you're just gonna want to rush Rocket Belt as soon as possible, and you're going to be going Rocket Belt into Zanya's. And this build is all about just one-shotting with Pen Boots. You can just one-shot an enemy ADC by yourself. Your teammates don't have to follow up and help. Especially have Ignite, you can one-shot a mid laner or an ADC. And you're usually with this AP build, you're not wanting to group up with your team. You're usually playing her more like an assassin. You're trying to come into flanks, hide out of vision, and come from behind the enemy. And you just go in the combo is you can rocket belt while you are ulting. So you come from behind and you stealth at the enemy and you ulti, and then flash rocket belt at the last second onto the backline. And if you hit any squishies, you just EQ them, Ignite, and Zanya's, and the target will get 100 to 0 killed. So like this is
Nice.
the AP build. So again, it's Rocket Belt, Zanya's with Pen Boots. And once you got those 2 core items, you can really get whatever you want after that. You can get Morello's, Void Staff, like whatever AP items, but
Just
the core
depending
is
on the game.
The Rocket Belt Zanya's, yeah. A key thing actually to note, by the way, that a lot of people don't know about Neeko is her passive, where you can turn into allies, hides the ulti cast. So if you use your W in stealth, the enemy actually sees the ulti coming, even if you're invisible, they see the circle. But your passive hides the circle from the enemy team. So anytime you're going to ulti on Neeko, no matter what build you're going, you always want to put your passive up so the enemy team doesn't see you casting ulti. So when you're coming from a flank, I put my passive up, I stealth and I start ulting, and they have no idea I'm ulting, and then all of a sudden at the last second I flash rocket belt on them, and only when I rocket belt at the end do they actually see the ulti coming, and at which point they're usually just screwed. Yeah, so that's like my like bursty like engage one shot build. So this build's really good if your team has already tanky members on it. Um, it was better at the start of the season. It's actually my new build's actually better now because of this whole freaking gourd drinker meta. But build's really good when the enemy team has a bunch of squishy targets, multiple squishy targets that you can one shot. And the build I've been going now with Predator is more of like a tanky utility build. And the reason why I think it works so well is because right now the enemy team usually has too many champions that I can't actually kill. They have all their assassins who used to be like lethality assassins where I could one shot them, they could one shot me. Now with Gourd Drinker, it's like they can one shot me, but I can't even one shot them. So it's like the damage seems to just not be as efficient, and Rocket Belt is super expensive. So instead of going Rocket Belt, I've been going Locket into Zanya's. With this build, you are a lot tankier. So with Predator, you can just, instead of having to go for these flank plays, it's usually not as good to go for flank plays because you can't one-shot the backline with you. And the thing about the Rocket Belt build was I could one-shot them, so my team wouldn't be in position to follow up, but I would just solo kill them. With this build, you can't really solo kill anyone, so you always have to be in position of your allies to help you. You can't just be going off by yourself. So with this build, you're usually sticking around with your team, which makes sense because Locket gives your team AoE aura also. But you can at any point just pop Predator and just run at the enemy face first, and because of that extra tankiness you have, they can't just like kill you. So, yeah, with this build, you don't have to go Locket or Zanya's first. It depends on the matchup. So if I'm in a lane where I think I can snowball my lane phase and like need the extra damage to get kills, you can rush Zanya's first and still like have your early game spike where you're still like an assassin and able to one shot, and then curve into later into the Locket to just get the extra tankiness and survivability. Or if you're in a lane where you don't need the extra damage, and you just need the survivability. So for example, if you're versus like a tank support and you have like a ADC who has a lot of damage, and you just need to be able to not die to their engage and just CC their ADC, and your ADC will kill them, you could go Locket. But if you're versus like, for instance, an enchanter support where you don't really need the extra survivability, but you need the extra damage to actually score a kill, you can go Zanya's Rush. So the build is Locket Zanya's, but you can go either or depending on what you think you need for the game.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the Locket build.
Is there any situation with the Predator build that you wouldn't go Locket? I think I watched a YouTube video where you were like, I'm the only AP on the team, so I'm going to go Everfrost this game. Is there anything like that, or is that pretty uncommon?
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often, but yeah, there are times where if you're the only AP, you can go something else. Like again, it really is about team comps. Like I said, in the meta right now, the meta is very squishy. But again, if you had like a tank top and a tank jungler and your team was low damage, you might want to go more damage oriented. But if your team is all squishies, which almost every game my team is all squishies, like I'm looking at my match history, it's Misfortune, Yone, Rumble, Camille, right? Like we have 4 damage dealers. I don't need to do damage, right? Like we got Misfortune, Vex, Nocturne, and GP, all damage dealers, right? Like it's not very often that you have tanks. But there was like, for instance, a recent game, maybe it was even on my main account, where I was playing, Tyler 1 was on my team, and he was playing tank Cho'Gath mid, and I had a
Mhm.
Kled top. That was actually the game you're talking about with the
It
Everfrost. Was the
was.
Tyler 1
It
game,
was
right?
the game I was talking about.
Yeah, because it's the most I haven't really used. I didn't even get to finish it, but yeah, it's like the team has too many tanky targets. My team's all tanky and doesn't have very much damage, and we had no AP, so I went AP there. The big thing is I don't really like Everfrost on Neeko as an item. The only reason why I go Everfrost is because if you rush Zanya's first, it's really your second item spike, your finish your support item, and your income gets really low, and it's really hard to get an expensive mythic after that point. So the reason I was going Everfrost is because instead of going Rocket Belt has really bad components. So at this point in the game, you only have 2 open slots if you're going to be holding control wards, and sitting on an alternator and a ruby crystal doesn't give you any CDR, and it just like aren't very good components for later in the game to be sitting on. Where the components for Everfrost, I finished that game without finishing Everfrost, right? So I was just sitting on the components where I had 20 ability haste, extra
Mhm.
HP, and just lost a little bit of burst. So I just like the Everfrost components as a second item for the most part, but the reason why Rocket Belt is better as a first item is because, again, the components are really good of it for a first item. The alternator gives you this early game spike where you can snowball off of it. So it's a really expensive item. But if you get alternator and start snowballing kills, you basically theoretically lower the cost of the item because you're getting all this gold income.
Right.
Compared to Everfrost, where like Lost Chapter isn't a very good snowball item and it's more expensive. So yeah, I usually would never get Everfrost unless it's like second item. And also a good note is Shirelia's is a really good cheap mythic. Before actually, when I was running Electrocute, I haven't been running Rocket Belt for a while. I only run Rocket Belt in like Diamond and below. It's just
Mhm.
these mythics are too expensive for support in this elo. So I actually usually ran Shirelia's and Dazania's with the Electrocute build personally. That's where I kind of invented this Predator build was when I realized that I was trying Predator and I felt like Shirelia's Predator just felt really overkill. I didn't really need like 2 items to help me engage.
Mhm.
So I felt like if I didn't need Shirelia's, it was like Zanya's seemed like a good alternative. I decided that I'm really only losing in the end 40 AP, and 40 AP is only about like 150 damage in my combo, and then I
Mhm.
can become really tanky. So that's how Locket really got invented. Was when I feel like in Grandmaster Plus you have to go for those 2,500 gold mythics, and there aren't really many good ones for Neeko. So I was substituting out the Shirelias for Locket was how that came about.
Right. That's smart. It's a smart switch, especially with all things considered with where we're at in this season. So I
Yeah.
like that. And now knowing the builds, and we can get back into like the general gameplay questions. Talk to me about just team fights overall as Neeko.
Right. So team fighting, like I said, you have 2 different ways. So with the AP build, you're looking for the flanks, you're looking for big alties, you're looking to solo kill people. You don't want to get too ahead of yourself. You want to wait till enemies like caught out. It's really important, by the way, that you spam ping going in when you're going in, so your team follows up. Because if you don't spam ping going in, they won't know, and then they won't be in position to follow up. But yeah, the AP build is really you're super squishy. You cannot get hit. You will die if you get hit by anything and get poked out. You're just looking to stay out of vision, play as like a pretty much like a Zed hiding in the shadows and looking for an opportunity to come in. And
Mhm.
with the Locket build, you're playing to usually be in the center of your team comp, always just around with your team, and you're just usually peeling and CCing people who dive into your team, but always have the pressure that at any point you can pop Predator and run at the enemy if anyone mispositions. So if I see all of a sudden the top laner's top and we have 5 people mid, I can pop Predator and just run in and engage. But for the most part with the Locket build, I find myself more often than not just playing as a peeler where your root is a 3-second root. So I can sit there and I can just AoE root the whole enemy team and ulti them and just keep peeling, pop Locket to save my ADC from dying to the assassins diving onto them. So yeah, that's like I don't know if there's how to explain team
No, you
fights
were
much better
good.
than that.
You were right. You already did kind of answer that previously. I
Yeah.
should have took notes on that.
One thing I should note about the build too is I only put 3 points in my Q early for lane phase because it gives you her Q has insane base damage. I don't know the number off heart, but it's like if you get all 3 bounces, it goes up by like 85 damage per point and is
Mhm.
easily the highest base damage ability in the game with per point in it. So your Q does insane damage. So I put 3 points in it early so that I can poke the enemy out or look for all ins. But once I hit level 6, I start to max my E. So I only put 3 points Q and then I max my E as soon as possible because once you get your ulti, first of all, longer route means they can't flash out of your ulti because they're in a longer route. And second of all, I'm trying to ramp your route goes up to a 3-second route when it's max level. So
Nasty.
yeah, I usually just get 3 points Q for lane phase into max root so that I can just get the route as long as possible and just like CC everyone.
Yeah, and 3 seconds is so nasty, and that's really good to note too, because people are always asking what we max first, what do you max first, right? And knowing 3 points in Q just for damage, and then from that point, you're kind of more turning into like a pick support with your E, super
Yeah.
relevant. You already went over, Dog. You went over a bunch of special tips as we've been talking here. Are there any other special tips or tricks on Neeko that we haven't talked about today?
Well, with the passive, where I said where it hides your ulti, another thing to note is you can keybind your passive. It's set as default Shift F1 through 4. You
Mhm.
can go to your hotkeys and change it. I made mine Shift 1 through 5, so that you don't have to click it. You can like do it instantly, and that's how in team fight, even in the middle of a team fight, if I'm about to ulti, I just always put my passive up. So you should keybind that is one tip. Another tip is your root is a buffer ability, like a lot of champs like Lux and Ari and stuff. You can root and then flash after to make it less reaction time for the enemy to dodge, because her root actually has a crazy long buffer up time where it's like when you throw it, the enemy gets a long time to react to it. But if you root
Mhm.
and then flash, you can get rid of the buffer basically. So yeah, the root flash is another one.
And like I
And
said, we talked about a lot of them, so I'm sure
yeah.
we hit most of them.
A general tip with Neeko, everyone I guess should know, but I guess some people don't, is your root has an effect where it gets empowered when it goes through a minion. So it starts off with
Mhm.
half the duration, and if it goes through anything, it doubles. So it starts off as a one. If at max rank, it's a 1.5 second root, but if it goes through something, it turns into a 3 second root. So I guess that's important to note. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, and that's where you were
Um,
quoting the 3 seconds of root time once you hit max level if you hit multiple enemies.
Yeah. So usually it's like someone's running through your team and you off that person, it's a 1.5 second route, and everyone behind it's a 3 second route. And an important thing to note also is that when you have rank 5 route, that is if they don't have tenacity, the 1.5 seconds is long enough for you to ulti and them not have a period to flash out. So if you E alt instantly with no delay between the E and the alt with a rank 5 route, they can't actually get out of it, which is also another reason it's important to max your root early. So like say they have like an Evelyn or an Echo, if you root ulti them and you don't have rank 5 root, there'll be a brief second where they can both ulti out of your alt. But if you have
Mhm.
rank 5 root and you E ulti instantly, they actually don't get a window to ulti out of your alt, which is really important. So when an Echo is diving your team, the classic where he one shot and ults out, you can root ulti and then you guys can one shot him before he can ult out. So that's a good tip, I guess, too. Yeah, the base is 1.5. So when someone's diving your team, it's like 1.5. But when you're like AoE rooting their whole team, it'll end up being 3 seconds because it just goes through. And that's why in lane phase, it's important to stealth the minion wave. I don't stealth usually at the enemy. I stealth towards the minion wave and root through the minion wave to get the double length route, because at rank 1 your route is like a 0.7 second route, but then powered is 1.5 seconds. So yeah, usually in lane phase you're stealthing from the bush towards the lane and then rooting the enemy through the wave. When it gets empowered, it also speeds up and like doubles in speed. So it's like when you throw a non-empowered route, it's like a Morgana bind, super dodgeable, but when you empower it, it moves super, super quick. So you usually stealth to the minion wave and root through the wave to make it move really quick and double the duration of the route.
Yeah, and even early game, 1.4 seconds is, I think, the longest stun of all supports. Really anything that I've covered. I think the max is
Yeah.
like 1 second, 1.25. So 1.4 is
Morgana
probably the
bind is
max.
probably pretty close.
True,
Not
true.
gonna lie.
Morgana,
Mhm.
yes. We talked a lot about runes already. I had notes in here saying that I see that you have some variation on the Predator page where you swap sometimes between conditioning and unflinching. I assume that's just because if you're going up a team with against a team with a lot of CC, then you probably go unflinching, if not conditioning.
Yeah, I guess I can just go over every part of their tree
Sure.
quickly. So my runes. So I go Predator. Next I go Taste the Blood. The reason I don't go Cheap Shot is because Cheap Shot, its cooldown is 4 seconds, but realistically its cooldown is the length of your route.
Hmm.
And your route is a 12-second cooldown. So, and if you miss your route, you get no value. And Taste the Blood, you can get value. You can't miss it. And because I take W level 1, it's really good for the auto trading. If I auto for auto, but I'm healing on that auto trade, it just makes it more efficient. Next, I go Zombie Ward, but in lower eloads, you can also go Ghost Poro, because Zombie Ward is good because if the enemy's warding, but if the enemy's not warding, Ghost Poro can be better.
Real
Hunter.
quick, sorry to cut you off. I was going to say, for me as a diamond, quote unquote, platinum player, right? Why would someone pick Ghost Poro over Zombie? Help me figure out that conundrum in my
Um,
low elo brain.
I would still personally, in Platinum Plus, probably still go Zombie personally, but the big difference is if you're in an elo where the enemy's not warding, Zombie Ward, you stack your AP every time you kill a ward, and Zombie Ward, you can only be
Mhm.
stacking it if the enemy's actually warding. So
Got it.
In an elo where the enemy support is, putting 3 wards down around Bear Dragon when Dragon's spawning, and you can go in and maybe find 2 of those and get 2 stacks, you can start to stack it efficiently. But if you're in an elo where the enemy support literally is just not warding, and you're using your sweeper not finding wards, then you're not going to be able to stack it. You're not going to be able to get your AP. And the other thing about Ghost Poro is it works actually in a really the same way, is that Ghost Poro is only useful if the enemy team isn't sweeping your wards. Your wards have to actually die to get the Ghost Poro, and if the enemy team's always sweeping your wards and you can't actually get them to die, then you're not going to be able to stack it. So again, in lower elo, where the enemy team's usually not even switching to sweeper and they're not finding your wards, you're going to be able to stack Ghost Poro because the enemy team's not killing your wards. Where in my elo, I have a hard time stacking Ghost Poro because the enemy always finds my wards before they expire and kill them, and I'm not able to convert them. So it comes into this thing where it's like Ghost Poro is good in low elo because the enemy team's not sweeping your wards, and zombie wards good in high low because the enemy is actually placing wards that you can sweep and find. So I think Ghost Poro is really good in like gold and below, and zombie ward gets better like platinum plus.
Thank you. I
The next
always use
tree,
Zombie Ward, and I always, when I was looking through the rune page, I'm like, why would anyone even use Ghost Poro? But now it makes sense. Thank you.
yeah,
Sorry to
like
cut you off.
yesterday I did a VOD review of a viewer yesterday who doesn't even play ranked, only plays normal games, and they every single they would never place, like, their vision score at the end of the game was like 12. Like they didn't place wards, and the enemy support didn't get the sweeper either. Didn't both supports didn't get sweeper all game, so like any wards you would have placed would have converted into Ghost Poros, and you wouldn't. Both supports didn't take sweepers; they wouldn't even be finding wards. But anyways, yeah. So the next tree, I go Relentless Hunter because movement speed is really good. Again, Neeko's playstyle, you want to be like, finding flanks and hiding out of vision, and also if you're stealthing from a bush, the more move speed you have, the farther you can get. You
Hmm.
can go Ingenious Hunter. Ingenious Hunter is pretty good, but I'm just really addicted to move speed. But obviously, Ingenious Hunter in this build gets a lot of value too, because you have Predator, you have Locket, and you have Zanya's 3 abilities
Hmm.
that get reduced by Ingenious Hunter. But the way I play is usually in my elo, people are all fighting together, and usually it's not like after a fight, it's usually 2 to 3 minutes before the next fight. So I'll always have my cooldowns up anyways. So I prefer move speed, but you can go Ingenious Hunter if you
Right,
want.
and you're moving around
And then
the
for the
map a lot
secondary
too.
tree,
You're roaming a lot,
yeah.
right? So.
Yeah, exactly. Roaming and stuff. It's just, I think Relentless Hunter just gets a lot more value. And even when you're predating at someone, you're getting that extra move speed to just help you close the distance.
Mhm.
So then for the next tree, I go into the Resolve tree because Neeko is a mage, but she's a mage who needs to get tanky and run into the middle of the enemy team. So even if you're going the AP build, it's not bad. And I've been running Conditioning and Unflinching as they are the best scaling runes for tankiness in the game. Conditioning will just give you about 700 gold worth of resistances, and Unflinching will help you just like not get CC'd for a long time and be able to live. But there are some times where you switch it up. So instead of Conditioning, I can take Second Wind if I'm in a really hard lane that has a lot of poke. So if I'm versus like a mage support, or maybe it's like an enchanter support with a poke ADC, like a Lulu
Mhm.
Misfortune or something. You can take Second Wind to give you extra sustain for the lane phase. When you combo Second Wind with Taste the Blood, you can often get a crazy amount of healing in. So Second Wind is a good option to Conditioning if you need to play for your lane phase, but if you think you can get out of lane fine, Conditioning is much better. And I almost always take Unflinching, but if the enemy team has no CC whatsoever, you can take Overgrowth instead. And I always take the
Gotcha.
attack speed rune in the minors just because Neeko's empowered auto does a lot of damage. And if you get into an early all in level 1 or 2 or something, getting an extra auto attack in could be an extra empowered auto, which will usually out damage the 9 AP. And it also helps you kill wards quicker. All those times where you don't kill a ward by 1 auto attack, this attack speed rune helps you get those.
Nice. And then the rest are just obviously depending on your opponents. I would assume you either get magic resist or armor just looking at the enemy team, or are you more focused
Um,
on your lane for those resistances?
yeah, so the bottom one I almost, unless it's a double AP lane where I'll take double MR rune, which almost never happens. So in general, I always take the armor on the bottom one. The middle
Mhm.
one that's AP, I'll either take AP or Magic Resist, depending if they have an mage support or they just have heavy AP, maybe a jungler's AP with an enchanter's support who pokes a lot. In general, I always keep the armor rune though, because Neeko has one of the lowest base armors in the game.
Mhm.
So even if you're so like even if they have like like a lot an AP support, you want that armor rune because you're still gonna be getting auto from the ADC, or when you auto attack and the whole minion wave tags onto you, you just want that extra armor rune because yeah, Neeko has one of the lowest base armors in the game. It's really important, I think, to have the armor rune no matter what, unless you're versus literally a double AP lane like a Ziggs Sona lane or something. Then I'll take a double MR rune.
Makes sense. And is the electrocute page pretty similar? Are you still
Yeah,
taking the same secondary runes?
yeah, the electrocute exact same on the front except electrocute. And for the secondary, with Electrocute, I would more often than not, usually Neeko is pretty squishy, so I would usually take second wind and overgrowth almost always with this page, because usually with Electrocute you're playing for early game and for snowball, so taking conditioning is for scaling, second wind is for like the early game power. So second wind will give you the more sustain to let you more aggressively trade. And
Mhm.
unflinching is usually good if you're tanky, because if you get CC'd and you're tanky, the CC will end and you'll be able to live. But with the AP build, with Rocket Belt, you're super squishy. If you get CC'd, it doesn't matter if you reduce the duration, you're probably just dead. So I usually opt in for the overgrowth for more HP instead. Another thing to note that was a rune that I used to take in the season that's also viable is you can go Inspiration with Perfect Timing and Cosmic Insight.
Mhm.
With this page is usually you want to be rushing Zhonya's though with the Perfect Timing rune, and with this you can just like curve into an early Zhonya's spike and Cosmic Insight lower flash cooldown. But I don't know. In general, I think second wind and overgrowth is better because it just
Yeah,
gives you
that
better
page you're
lane
just
phase.
kind of like testing out. It sounds like still, yeah.
I mean, I
With
ran it
the
for most of the season at the start, but then I just decided that it wasn't worth it, to be honest. Like it just, I don't know, it just doesn't feel as good as second wind. Second wind just makes your lane phase feel so much better.
Okay. Awesome. All right, we're almost at the end here. I have a quick lightning round for you. It's just mostly for fun. So
Okay.
just answer off questions quickly for me, okay?
Yep.
Number one, cake or pie?
Pie.
Would you rather gain LP or gain skill?
Skill.
Would you rather have chat on or mute all?
Mm, Chat on.
Okay. Would you rather go damage or utility?
Uh, I like both, but I have
Yeah,
more
yeah, I
fun.
mean Nico's kind of both, right? Like,
I have more fun playing a utility focused Neeko,
okay,
but I
awesome.
think AP is probably the best to carry.
Are you for or against all chat being disabled?
I'm for
Same. Would you delete Yumi or delete Yone?
Yumi,
Would you rather support a Kog'Maw or support a Draven?
Draven,
And then finally, which do you like more, Anivia support or Zac support?
Anivia.
All right, that was my lightning round. Good job. You did really well there. Good quick thinking.
Thank you.
The last two questions here, dog, are I could probably just figure these out my own, but it's nice to hear it from the horse's mouth. What are your best ADC synergies for Neeko?
Neeko wants to have aggressive ADCs because she is an early game champion. In general, in general, Neeko synergizes with every ADC, so you can play. It's usually the best ADCs in the meta are the best. There's been periods where Kai'Sa has been my favorite, and now Kai'Sa's not meta, and it feels like trash to play the Kai'Sa. So as long as you have a good ADC matchup, it's usually good for Neeko. But the
Mhm.
best three would be Kalista, Caitlyn, Tristana. All three of these have a good early game, but the big thing that they all have, other than just being really aggressive, is they're the only three early aggressive ADCs that also have self peel. So obviously with my peel build, Neeko, I have a bit better peel than my AP that I used to run all the time. But in general, usually the ADC is going to have to protect themselves a bit more. So having three ADCs who can self peel with mobility but also play aggressive are the best. So those are the top three.
Nice. Are there any ADCs that you don't want to play against as Neeko, or are you okay with everybody?
Yeah, so again, if they're meta, it's usually fine. Like for instance, Jinx when she was meta didn't feel bad because usually she was just good for a reason. But in general, again, Neeko's early game. If you have ADC who's weak early, it can put Neeko in a vulnerable position because Neeko is low range and can get poked out easily. So if your ADC can't pressure the lane, usually you're going to be having a bad time. So I
Mhm.
don't like ADCs that are weak early, aka Jinx, Twitch, Vayne, and Kog'Maw are
But then,
probably like the
like
four really.
your enemy ADC, is there anyone that like you don't want to play against?
So any ADC who has mobility will obviously be harder because you can't guarantee your route. So mobile ADCs are the
Mhm.
best, but the ones that are the worst, even if they're mobile, is Poke. Neeko again is low range, and her biggest weakness is Poke. So like Varus is like super annoying
No.
because it's okay before first back you can find all-ins, but once he gets like that serrated dirk, he hits you with one arrow and you just lose like 70% of your health. It's just not fun.
And then same question for supports. It sounds like for supports that are good against Neeko, it's going to be the same. Something like long range, like Xerath, or a different poke support would probably be your nemesis. But what is Neeko good into?
So you hit the nail on the head with mage supports. Mage supports are Neeko's hardest counter, which benefits me because no one plays mage supports in high elo. The lower elo you get, the more mage supports you'll play against, and they are Neeko's counter because they just outrange her and usually outdamage her.
Mhm.
What Neeko is good in. So on the flip side is Neeko is a mage that loses to all mages, but what Neeko wins against is she wins against tank supports. Most mages lose to tank supports because they have no escape. If they get hooked, they die. Neeko has a stealth, so if she gets hooked, you can usually use your stealth in a certain way to counteract their engage. For instance, if Nautilus hits a hook and you stealth at the exact same time the hook hits, he won't be able to auto attack root you out of it and you can run away. So where most mages, Neeko loses to all mages, but she usually wins to tanks, which makes her have an actual niche that she fits. Where if your team needs AP damage, but the enemy team has tank support, she could be probably the best pick you can pick. Where, you know, if you're facing an enchanter support lane, enchanters are okay. I'd say they're like 50-50. You can find all-ins, but usually like most mages would do better into enchanters than Neeko would. But her definite strength is usually into tankier supports, where she can just auto attack, harass them with empowered autos, and use her escape to be safe.
Yeah, that's so niche. I'm imagining the average player would probably think that they're countering Neeko if they pick like a tanky support into her, but the reality is you're actually countering them.
That's again why I do pretty good in high elo, because recently the high elo meta switched to enchanter support, so I've had a bit harder time actually winning my lane phase. But for the longest time, high elo has just been tank support meta, and it's just like I usually win versus most of the tank supports, so it helps.
Boom. Awesome. And that's really all I had. The last question I always have on here for everyone is what would you like me to plug for you? I know you have a YouTube, you stream all the time, obviously. Is there anything else that you want to get out there as well?
I mean, my biggest platform I'm trying to grow on is is trying to become a professional Twitch streamer. I'm
Mhm.
trying to grow my YouTube because I haven't really focused on it in a while. But my only other big social media I use is I'm pretty big on TikTok now. So yeah.
Oh man, you got to teach me the TikTok game because I still haven't transferred over there. I don't know what's going on over there. I'm too old.
I mean, I'm 27. I'm kind of a bit older too for TikTok, but I don't know. TikTok's pretty. I think for me, I already had this like people. It helped because when I started it about 7 or 8 months ago, uh, at first people recognized me from my stream and YouTube because they'd already seen me a lot in my face. So like that helped me with initial like starting off better than anyone else who would start because people recognize me. And
Mhm.
then you just have to like I just consistently upload every day. But within my first 5 videos, I had a pop off one where I basically decided that most of the people on TikTok are like kids and they like really like people with lots of personality. So I decided to just make a first of all a guide where it started off with like, "Hi, I'm Doglightning, a Grandmaster Neeko Support main," with my icon, so everyone gets like pulled into that first.
Right.
And the second thing was I tried to be as cringy as possible. And a lot of my early videos, I did that. So I would like practice, like instead of saying like, "Hey, I'm Doglightning, a Grandmaster Neeko Support main," which is how I would do it now on my TikTok. Now that it's like really big and I don't have to like be kind of fake, I would be like, "Hey, I'm Doglightning, a Grandmaster Support main." I try to just like be super like I don't know,
Crank it up to
cringy.
11 basically.
Yeah, like I just tried to act like really weird and like do weird hand motions and stuff, just like set myself apart. And yeah, I started to pop off when I released that. Literally, that video was, "Hey, I'm Dogmine, a Grandmaster Support main, and here are my 3 mythics I run on Neeko." And I put my fingers in the screen, and that one like popped off. And ever since then, I've kind of been getting like average 10 to 20K views per video.
Awesome. Yeah, I think TikTok is a whole new avenue. I think it's I don't want to say easy because obviously you put in a lot of work, but it's easier than some other avenues like Twitch or YouTube to grow in quickly at this
It
moment.
definitely has way better uh, discoverability because
Mhm.
they have like where YouTube will only show the people who are doing well in the algorithm and it's really hard to get into it. TikTok does a thing where they give everyone a fair chance. So like half the videos they'll show people are like the big people, but half the videos they'll show are like new people. Like I'll literally get videos where like the video has like 1 like and like 5 views, right? So like they'll still push new videos to everyone. And if your videos they have different tier levels. So like at tier 1 when you start, they'll push it to like 100 people. And if those 100 people have like good engagement, they'll push you up a tier where they'll start showing to like 500 people, right? I'm like probably at like tier 3 where I put a video and they instantly show like about 2 to like 5,000 people. And if it does well from there, it'll keep pushing it to more people. So like you just like push your accounts tier up higher and higher, and you're gonna start off at like only like 100. And like my first video, like I said, got like 600, right? Because on my first video, a bunch of people are like, "Oh, I think I've seen your stream before," right? And like I had
Right.
people who knew me, so I probably got pushed up really quickly up a tier. And then I had the like big blow up one on my fifth one, which probably pushed me up a tier. And since then, I've just consistently been doing well, so I get to stay in the tier I'm at. But yeah, it definitely has good discoverability. I'm like one of the biggest League of Legends TikTokers now. Like a lot of the big TikToker YouTubers and Twitch streamers aren't really on the platform, and if they are, they don't really get it. Like I like watch a lot of these big they just like have like their full screen and half the screen is black. Like you have to like reformat it to the screen of the phone.
Mhm.
But like yeah, it's definitely not easy. Most people like I watch have like maybe usually average 1,000 viewers per thing. I guess I just got kind of lucky and smart at the same time. Like right now,
I
my
think
video
smart.
yesterday 70,000 yesterday, 130,000 today, 30,000 the day before, 70,000 the day before, right? So
Yeah, I think smart. You're actually putting an effort into it. Like you said, a lot of these people are just copying and pasting, even if it doesn't fit the format of TikTok, and you're actually giving it a solid, effort
yeah,
as compared to
it's
most.
weird.
What's your TikTok handle so I can include that in the description too?
It should just be dog lightning. Yeah, it's just dog lightning.
Easy enough. All right, dog. That's all I got. I don't know if you had any questions or you wanted to say anything else before we conclude the interview, but I'm feeling good.
No, I don't got really anything else to say, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. You didn't do a Nivea support guide, but next year if you haven't found someone else who's done it for, maybe I'll be good enough on Nivea.
Well, so it sounds like me and you might have another future video that we need to look into
Yeah.
once you start climbing all the
Yeah.
way up with the Nivea too. Well, thank you, dog, for all
Yeah.
your time. Anything else before we part ways?
Nope, that's it, man.
Enjoy the rest of your day off, man. You stream so much, you needed a good day off. Go relax.
Yes, thanks, man. All right, see you.
Peace, dog.